All right. So basically, on this class, I'm just going to go through the syllabus real quick, and then we've got it filmed for the website too. But so the basic idea of this class is that we want to kind of put it together, a lot of the things that you've learned already in these other classes, to create kind of the end product of what your business should look like. You know, the model. How is it going to be set up? And so we want to then, we'll take some things that we did in the supply chain, because you kind of did something like that in that class, but we want to add in all the other parts too, the administrative, the marketing, human resources, and get a picture of what this business should look like with all of its different systems. So that's what this class is about. It's kind of, it's one of the few classes I would say that you wouldn't be able to take until you've had a few business classes with us already, because you're trying to put it all together kind of in a class like this and come up with a final form of what your business should look like, how it should run, what are your target customers, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's really what we want to look at in this class, and think through the fact that, okay, how you've envisioned it up to this point, maybe there's a more efficient way to run it. Right? Or maybe there's some other customers that you haven't been thinking about, or maybe there's some, you know, it's like Leah with yours, you've actually been doing a little bit of it, but maybe there's other markets that the way the business model is set up now wouldn't be able to function if you had a whole lot more customers or something. You know what I'm saying? So we want to have, what is the final form? What are the different, you know, what does it look like when it's in maturity? Right? When it's at as big as I want it to be, what does that look like? It's kind of like your end goal. Say what?
Like out of our house.
Yeah, or have a really giant house. Either one. You know. And so that's kind of what we're after here with this. The book is the Harvard Business Model book. Kind of gives some ideas. So what I don't want is for you to just take what you already have in your head and just put it on paper, although some of it will be. I want you to at least spend some time thinking about, are there some creative ways I could make some changes to what I already have been thinking by adjusting the business model to make it more effective, right? So one of the things I was looking at, I was reading a book the other day about motivation, which is kind of your other business. The leadership choices one, I'll get into that later, but I'm going to focus more on a lot of motivation studies. How do you get people, customers and employees, to be genuinely motivated? So we're going to go through some of that. But when I was reading something on that, he made a kind of a good point, and he was talking about encyclopedia sales, right? I know, exciting, right? And he said, 15 years ago, he said, if I'd have given you these two business models that I'm about to tell you, and asked you which one is most likely to be successful 15 years later, which would you have chosen? So the first one is Microsoft. They launched something called Encarta. That's Microsoft's encyclopedia. And so Microsoft put, you know, millions and millions of dollars into it. They had tons of executives, well-trained machine. Microsoft's a machine. You know, I mean, they've got very efficient systems and processes. They get good deals on computers. So they got everything. That was a joke. But they have everything very efficient. Or if company B doesn't have any money to pay anybody a salary, they don't have any executives, all they have is a website, and they can't even pay the people who are going to run the website, so they just got to hope that they'll do it for free and put in sometimes 20 to 30 hours of their own free time every week just to make sure that the website's up and running, but nobody's ever going to be able to pay them. Versus Microsoft's billion-dollar project, you know. And he said, which one would be successful 15 years later? And so obviously it wasn't Microsoft. They folded up shop. It was Wikipedia, who started with a website and asked people, hey, we can't ever pay you, but would you mind typing in stuff? And so the idea is, it exploded. It's become the dominant thing that people use, and nobody gets paid. It's just there's no salaries, there's no nothing. They have no cost except for just the website cost, you know. And so the idea is, if you would have taken people that had no training in encyclopedias, they had no financial backing hardly compared to Microsoft, and they weren't paying anyone salaries, they're just hoping that people will do it in their free time, versus people that are paid thousands of dollars to be encyclopedia salesmen, and things like that. You think there's no way that it would even be close, much less it not being close the other way. That the Wikipedia was the one that blew out Microsoft. And so anyways, the idea is that was a business model that nobody saw coming, right? That they revolutionized that whole industry by just having a different business model. They just said, hey, we think that people will care enough about this stuff that they'll do it on their own, and we don't have to pay them. And so they tried it, and people did, if it's their field. Yeah, people love doing it. Just the joy of, that's the only reason, is because people wanted to be the one in their field that wrote the article. And so, and the whole thing exploded, and so that entire business, that entire revolution took place not because they had more money, but because they thought of a business model that worked without the money, and that worked better than what they had before. So the idea is that just because somebody else is doing it this way, maybe if you had a business model that was superior, you could blow somebody out of the water, not even without the money, because your business model was better, right? Amazon destroyed every retail bookstore because they came up with a different model, right? And so now hardly anybody goes to a bookstore. Yeah, well, it's okay. That'll change.
I hope not. It's my favorite place to go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's
Well,
when I vote.
Which one?
The one up in the Loop. What is it called?
I don't know. Oh.
I'd love to go there. Get coffee and we'll just sit at the table and read for hours.
Yeah. Well, any company that has their price in the title, you got to watch out for them. The experience, I can see, that's probably the only thing they have. They definitely don't have price. They're way more expensive, but sometimes the atmosphere is worth it. The coffee shop part, they put the coffee shop inside of them. Yeah, they have the racks out front. For adults, it's hard to find something good there. I go there every once in a while to look, and it's hard to find. There's a reason they're on clearance for adult books, But, yeah. Yeah. And so anyways, the idea is their sales, though, are tanking. These companies, they have a hard time keeping their stores open. They're not very profitable anymore. And the only reason that they are kind of profitable is because they created websites like Amazon's to try and compete with Amazon a little bit. It's not their brick and mortar stores. The brick and mortar stores are killing them, but they've created websites now to where they're doing web retailing. But Amazon blew everybody away. They're up there competing now with like Google and Walmart. They're just a massive company, and all they had was a better way of doing it. And so in this class, I want you to think, not just let me put out what I've already thought into this plan, but let me think, is this model the only way to do it? And so for your putting it together, I want you to spend some creative time and just brainstorm, are there other ways to run this business than what people are traditionally doing, right? And so, and whatever you come up with in your project is fine, but I don't want you to just rush into that with what you've already thought about. I want you to maybe read through that book, think about some ideas about maybe some radical ways to do things different, and just see. It always sounds a little strange at first. Amazon sounded strange at first. You got to buy the books from them online. What if they don't send them to you? What if the person steals your money? There were all these questions in the beginning, but they still became successful. Wikipedia. Well, what if they type in stuff that's wrong? And you got a wrong entry. There was all kinds of questions in the beginning, but it worked. And so it may seem a little strange, whatever your idea is, but anyways, it's worth it to have a class like this to at least think about the big picture. I know what the goal of my company is. That's set in stone, what we're trying to do, but how we do it maybe there's some other things to think about.
What all are you wanting in there?
I would say at least all your major systems, you know, human resources, marketing, financial, any production systems that you're going to have, you know, so anything that your business needs that you would potentially, if it was large, put a manager in charge of that division. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that, that, you know, so in the beginning, you're the manager in charge of all those divisions. But if it was a large, if it became eventually what you're wanting it to become, what different sections would you have? And then, you know, if there's something unique, like Amazon's was unique because they're not going to sell in the store anymore, they're selling it online. So if you have something that is unique, you can explain that in the paper part. You know, so, you know, when you draw your chart of your different systems, it may not capture the uniqueness of what you're trying to do just with the chart that lists each of your systems. So you need to know what each of your systems are so you have a comprehensive list. But when you're writing your paper, if there's anything unique that's important that's not being reflected just in a list, you know, that you should put that in there. You know, so if you had some unique way of interviewing the people for their cake design or something, you know what I'm saying, that they design it themselves on the computer and then order it from you, and then you make a custom thing from what they saw on the computer, something like that. Whatever it is, if there's something like that that's a little different, that's not going to be reflected in just that list of, okay, we've got production, we've got accounting, you know. So I want you to explain in the paper the parts of what make your business model unique that are not necessarily reflected in the chart part of the paper that shows that you know all the different components that you have to address to make the business model work, right? So the chart is going to show every system that has to be present for your business to run efficiently. But that may not capture the uniqueness of how they operate, right? So if you've got some unique things, that's what you put in the paper part. Okay. All right, so any other questions over that? Okay, so I think that's good. Everything else is the same. That's your main paper, week 7. Everything else is just discussion boards and everything like that. Okay.